What's up? What's happening, folks? Welcome back to the channel Sports, Life and Politics T.V. I'm Samuel Koppel, YouTube's number one couch detective, and I'm here for the news. And today I'm going to go over a few clips that's going around, both nationally and internationally. But first, I'm going to start with this Israeli clip. Obviously, they're at war with the Palestinians and Hamas in Gaza. Most people might say, hey, they're only at war with Hamas. Looking at some of the bombings, indiscriminate bombings, it's obvious they're at war with the regular everyday citizens and Hamas. And I told you guys in these videos that I made, here, all these videos I made on this war, knowing that the Israelis in the upper echelons of their government knew this attack was coming, but thought that they can go in and use bombing and use fear tactics to win this war. And I said in these videos that there was no way in hell that Israel was going to win this war. And they are not winning. I was one of the first people on YouTube to say, hey, man, they getting their ass whooped over there. They're not winning over there. You might say, how would you know that? How could you know that they're not going to win or that they wasn't winning? Because actions speak louder than words. You have something called history. History says that when you're fighting in urban warfare and you're fighting against somebody who's using guerrilla tactics, that it's going to be damn near impossible to win, especially when they're fighting for their lives. Like there is nowhere else to turn for the Palestinians. No other country wants all those people. So they have to fight. Israel, on the other hand, has these people in a glorified concentration camp. So I knew then that they weren't going to win. And as time has went on, I have been proven right again. Israel is not winning. It says Israel begins pulling out thousands of troops. They're getting their asses handed to them. And I told you in the last two videos I made before, or really last four altogether, that Israel does not have a great military. They have great technology. They got a lot of bombs. But when you're talking about man-to-man fighting combat, that's not who they are. That's like the United States. We have some of the bravest men and women on the planet. I talked about that before because we have a history of brave men and women fighting. So they can cling on to that legacy. You have people join the military, they want to be heroes. They want to fight. They want to, make a name and reach for the glory of warfare. But that's not Israel. That's not Europe in general either. The European militaries are pathetic. They can't fight no wars. They ain't got the manpower. When the last time you've been seeing them people fighting wars over there in Europe? They don't fight wars like that. They're not no good at it. That's why they're so scared of the goddamn Russians, because they know that the French and Poland and Italy and all these countries, they ain't got no goddamn good military. The United States is propping them people up. But let's get into this clip of Israel begins pulling out thousands of troops out of Gaza. You can say whatever you want to say, but action speak louder than words. The proof is in the pudding. So let's take a look.
Rising tensions in the Middle East. President Biden was briefed by his national security team this morning about the escalating conflict between Iranian-backed rebels and the United States Navy. Meanwhile, Israel announced it's withdrawing thousands of troops from Gaza, signaling a new phase in the fighting. But as CBS's Ian Lee reports, the war shows no sign of ending soon.
Sirens ring in the new year in Israel as Hamas fired rockets. The country's Iron Dome missile defense system illuminated the sky with interceptions. But in Gaza, 2024 looks a lot like the previous year. Men rescued an injured child as the sound of explosions chased them from Khan Yunis. But hospitals in Gaza are so full, doctors treat injured children on the floor. In Rafah, at this cramped tent city, everyone hopes the new year will bring peace. While this 11-year-old simply states, I wish not to die in 2024. Israel has also experienced loss in this war. The IDF says more than 170 soldiers have been killed since the ground invasion in Gaza. On Sunday,
And you might think 170 is not a lot, but when you fight in war, you don't care how many people you kill. You care how many people you put out of the battle. Like, you don't care. I don't care if he lives or dies, as long as he's not able to fight no more. So yeah, it might be only 175 people, which I would imagine if it's Israel, might be way more, probably closer to 300, 400 people dead. But they'll tell you, oh, it's only 2 or 3,000 that can't fight no more, when really it's 10,000 who's been put out of the fight. See, if you watch American media who are dealing in propaganda for the state of Israel, then you have to realize that they're not going to give us the real numbers or the real actualities of what's happening on the ground in Gaza. They are fighting guerrilla warfare where they are getting their hats handed to them. They're using RPGs. They're using IEDs. They're using snipers. They're using all type of shit that just completely causes havoc. So Israel has gotten so frustrated with this fighting that they have started to completely bomb refugee camps of everyday regular citizens. That's, you're losing if you have to bomb a refugee camp, because they say, oh, we killed over 8,000 Hamas soldiers. And I'm not saying they ain't killed none, but I would almost guarantee it ain't no goddamn 8,000. They count citizens too as part of the people that they count as Hamas that they're killing. So, you have to be careful with the propaganda. And I'm not saying Hamas doesn't have a propaganda machine. They do. But the problem is we don't hear none of their propaganda. We hear all of the propaganda of Israel, which is totally unfair, but that's just the way of the world. I'm not saying that, it should be fair. I'm just saying it's not.
began demobilizing thousands of troops. The first drawdown since the war began with Hamas's murderous attack in October. It comes amid mounting pressure from the White House to scale back the offensive. Israeli officials warn the end of this war is still months away. We will allow the soldiers to gather strength for the next activity, says the Israeli military.
He said, gather strength for the next activity. That's code for we getting our goddamn hats handed to us. Let me tell you this about the Israeli military right now. They are terrified right now. They've had all type of dissension within the ranks of the military. I'm talking about on the ground, of them telling certain captains or whatever, high-ranking officials in the military say, go take this area. And the troops literally looking at them and saying, no, we're not going in there. That's just too dangerous. We're not taking nothing. We're just going over there to possibly die. So you literally have troops who are saying no. That's why they pulling them out. It's amazing. That's why I say this is complete propaganda. He has to do it. That's his job, so I understand it. But I'm just saying, like, it's complete propaganda. When you're winning and kicking ass, you don't withdraw troops. If you withdraw troops, there's only two reasons to withdraw. Either I've completely won the battle and it's over and we can draw down, or I'm retreating because I'm getting my motherfucking ass whooped. So we know what's happening with this. They're taking a beating.
Spokesman, they could be needed on Israel's northern border. Over the weekend, militants attacked from Syria and Lebanon. Israel retaliated, striking Hezbollah targets. The threats to Israeli as well as U.S. interests also extend to the Red Sea. Iran sailed a warship into the waters today, a day after the U.S. Navy engaged 4 Houthi boats from Yemen and attacked a commercial ship, sinking 3. And over the weekend, Tel Aviv once again saw protesters demand the resignation of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And tonight, Major, he was dealt another blow. The country's Supreme Court struck down a...
And I've went over that too about Benjamin Netanyahu. He is what you would call a lame duck president. That's what we would call it in our country. But he is finished in Israel. And that's why this war happened in the first place. It's because he was a lame duck. Nobody wanted him no more. His government, the right-wing government, had overstayed their welcome. The people were finished with Benjamin Netanyahu. So it came to a point to where he knew he had to do something. So when the United States told Israel, hey, Hamas is about to attack you, Israel already knew that. That's why they did nothing. They did Nothing. And I proved it in the video through several different credible news clips in the United States who said it. Our own defense secretary, I think his name is Lloyd Austin, if I'm not mistaken, he's out of his own mouth in a press conference said, we warned Israel that's something that the Hamas was getting ready to attack. But Israel already knew that, but Benjamin Netanyahu wanted to get this war going to try to save himself within the government of Israel to stay in power. But many a great men and many a great countries have been destroyed by hubris. And he most definitely will be destroyed by hubris. There's no doubt about that. You know what I mean? He's overly proudful. No doubt about it.
Commercial law that would have limited powers.
Ian Lee, thank you.
And like I said before, as you can see right here at the bottom of the screen, I had made this video a while back when the war first started on October 5th. A wire from the CIA warned generally of the increasing possibility of a violence by Hamas. Then on October 6th, the day before the attack, U.S. officials circulated reporting from Israel indicating unusual activity by Hamas. Indications are now clear an attack was imminent. Hey, man, when I first said it, I told you immediately. But because of the reason they fighting this war, there's no way out. That's how I knew there's no way they were going to ever win this war. No way, no how. Let's take a look at this next clip. And I'm going to show you why Israel is withdrawing thousands of troops and getting their hats handed to them. Fair use, fair use. I'm using this video for educational purposes only. Fair use, fair use. And as you can see, if you just look at this, you see the RPG hanging off the balcony of this building. You see this tank. Look at all those different buildings. 360 degrees. You don't know who's popping out of what window and where and when. They pop out, shoot the rocket, and run off. They pop out, shoot the rocket, then run off. So it's like you're fighting ghosts. You bomb the building, but by the time you bomb the building, they done went back underground. You bomb the building, you create more rubble, you create more hide spots. It's a nightmare. That's why the Israeli soldiers don't want to fight this shit. And when they shoot those rounds into them tanks like that, you don't need a lot of shrapnel inside that small tank. When that shrapnel goes inside that tank, it's nowhere to go but bounce around through people. So that's why it's so dangerous. You don't want to completely blow up and destroy the tank. You just want to make the tank where they can't use it no more. You're not trying to kill everybody in the tank. I mean, they wouldn't be mad if they did, but I'm just saying, like, you just trying to disable people, maim people, blind, instill fear. And they most definitely are doing that. And as you can see, they fire that rocket. They don't stay and fight. You fire the rocket, you get out of Dodge. And they've been doing that for the last month and a half. They've just been firing rockets and getting out of Dodge. They're using snipers to pick people off slowly. They're using IEDs to blow up tanks. So Israel's in a lot of trouble. Their country is completely divided within the government. The people of Israel don't want Benjamin Netanyahu in power no more. They fighting a war that they're losing. Yeah, it's going downhill fast. Now, imagine that from an Israeli soldier point of view. They send you down a street, right? It's a whole street of buildings and alleys. And you drive past and they just blow up your fucking tank. And then you have to sit there and look at that. Then they be like, oh, well, we want you to go over here too next. They're like, hell no. They're like, no, we don't want to do that no more. Like I told you, this is not the United States. These are not the bravest fighting men and women on the planet. A lot of these people are fat and out of shape and reservists. These ain't who you think they are fighting. A lot of young people who don't have any military real experience. And very reminiscent of when America was fighting against Iraq too. And George W. Bush said, mission accomplished. And I always talk about that. And then a week later, them IEDs started going off and we was in a bloody fiasco. You know, there's just so many videos like that now that has started to come out over the past 2 or 3 weeks. But I told you 2 months ago, they weren't going to win this war and couldn't win this war because before you know it, them IEDs are going to start going off. I predicted that before the IEDs ever start going off. I knew they was going to start going off because you just rolling a tank down the street. Tanks are all, I don't want to say tanks are obsolete because they're not, but tanks are not conducive for urban warfare. Let me say that again. I don't think I've ever heard nobody say that. Tanks are not conducive for urban warfare. They are huge targets. Yes, you can blow and shoot through buildings, but the tanks are so slow, so easily hit. The more armor you put on them, the more gas you have to use. It's a lot of downsides to tanks. You're using the tanks to try to move through because at this point, the Israelis aren't even walking outside the tanks no more. That's out. All the Israelis you see now inside the tanks because they was hitting small groups of people who was just walking and talking with RPGs. They got hit so much with RPGs, they start saying, we need to be inside the tank. We can't just be outside. Then they start hitting the tanks. Now you're saying, now we can't be outside or we can't be in the tank. So the ground war they're losing miserably. And you can't beat these people because you're fighting the ideology. They keep yelling out, oh, well, they killed Abdul Hahuz Assad, the head of the Hamas. Naming these people like that matters. You know how many people America killed in Iraq and Afghanistan who they said was leaders of this or leaders of that, but it does not matter because you can't kill the ideology. It don't matter. It does not matter. You can't kill the ideology. So therefore, none of that shit matters. They're just going to replace that person. And these people are battle hardened now. They're fighters. All they want to do is fight at this point. They're sick of Israel having them in concentration camps. And they know at this point, the only way out is to fight your way out. I don't even think they want, if Israel says we want a ceasefire, that would be cool, but Hamas will want the fight to continue once they rearmed and replenished because they want to fight to get their own state. No matter what side you believe in, they want to fight for their own state, regardless of the fact. Benjamin Netanyahu is finished. He's done. He's on his last leg. His defense minister, a lot of people who's around him, he can't trust them no more. They don't trust him. I mean, he shot. The soldiers are refusing to fight in certain areas. It's just, I mean, but once again, I predicted this shit. I predicted the whole thing, how it would play out. If you go back and watch any of these videos, you watch what I talk about. I predicted that when they first said it was an attack in Israel, the first thing I said before I seen a clip, I said, oh, Israel knew that was coming. I knew that in the back of my mind because I seen how Benjamin Netanyahu was struggling with his people. It was already so many what you would call like protests in the streets. This was way before, this was in the summertime, before it even started. I did videos on that. I said, hey, Benjamin Netanyahu's in trouble. But now, as you can see, he's finished at this point. They're withdrawing thousands of troops, talking about they're gonna reestablish how they're gonna fight this war. You goddamn right you're gonna reestablish this shit. because you look weak and pathetic at this point. Well, let's go on to the next clip, you guys. Russia and Ukraine. Now, I've went over the Russia-Ukraine war from the very, very beginning. Well, right here. Why is Russia fighting a war in the Ukraine? I made this video. Let's see, when did I make this video? Let's look at the date. I made this video over a year ago, March 1st, 2022. I made this video March 1st, 2022. And I broke down exactly why they were fighting the war and why the United States wanted this war wanted the Ukraine to fight the Russians and so on and so forth. And then a year later, I made this video. Joe Rogan should have interviewed Sports Life and Politics TV because Joe Rogan had a man on his podcast. What's that? This man right here, and you might say, "Hey, your video only had 50 views." Say 20, but it was like 50 views. And I swear this man might have watched my video because everything he said in this clip, I said a year before he said it. So the thing is, it's like, well, not a year, but like 8 months before he said it, I said everything. It was like he took everything I said and said it in his video. And then I made the video like, shit, Joe Rogan should interview me. I told you exactly why that war was happening. And it wasn't nothing that they were saying on the news. But now, Russia and the Ukraine basically is over. It'll still be some more fighting. But like I told you before, on all the videos I've ever made on Russia and Ukraine, that Russia, under no circumstances, was going to lose this war. And this war would have been over within a month if the United States hadn't stepped in. Because the Ukraine don't have the military manpower to actually fight Russia. The United States has ran out of money and ammunition and bullets and missiles to give to them. So now they're done. The Russians were in a situation where they had to fight. They had no choice. So they were never going to quit fighting with all those missiles and nuclear weapons close to their border, with the United States now in cahoots with the Ukraine, and Ukraine is right next to Russia. Literally used to be a part of Russia. That's where Chernobyl is actually in the Ukraine. I used to think Chernobyl was in Russia, but that was back in the 90s when I didn't really understand the geopolitics of it. But Ukraine used to be a part of Russia. So let's take a look at this clip.
So as we head to the war's anniversary, nearly 2 years now, what is the state of play for the conflict at this point?
Well, at this point, the situation is we're seeing, especially over the last week, an intensification of aerial attacks. It all started last week with Ukraine basically destroying a landing ship that Russia had in the eastern part of Georgia. And since then, the attacks have been relentless, and there's a bit of a tit for tat in terms of aerial attacks, in terms of drone attacks. So last week we saw the biggest missile attack that Russia has conducted against targets, especially residential targets and civilian targets across Ukraine. And one of the missiles actually strayed into Poland for a bit, for 3 minutes. Then we saw another attack. This time, because apparently it was Russia. It was apparently Ukraine attacking a city next to the border on the Russian side, also killing people. And we're seeing more and more. There's a fresh attack right now, just now happening on Kiev. And
like I said before, just because I say the war is over, that don't mean it's over. I just mean like Ukraine strategically can't win at this point. They'll keep fighting, and it's like the same with Israel. They'll keep fighting, but Israel eventually is not going to win. They're going to have to come to some kind of settlement agreement and negotiate. I would say a two-state solution with Hamas and the Palestinians. And the same will happen with Ukraine. They're going to have to come to some kind of agreement, because at this point now you're just getting bludgeoned. Yeah, you'll keep fighting and doing little stuff here and there, but the United States has basically run out of the gumption to keep funding this war. You could tell and look at a losing side at a particular juncture. You realize they not gonna win this shit. You watching a boxing match, you see a man getting bludgeoned in the corner, and the other guy looks fresh as a daisy, like this guy, he's finished. So, you just hope the referee steps in and waves the white flag and say this shit's over from a merciful ass kicking. But the Ukraine, they're finished. Just like Israel, they're finished. They'll keep fighting. Don't get me wrong. It'll still be ongoing, but you're not going to beat these people because you have two different groups fighting for the same reason. They fight and feel like for everything. You didn't have another group who's fighting really not for everything. They was fighting because the United States coerced them into fighting. So interesting times. Very interesting times.
A large part of the cities without water and electricity. So there's a lot of aerial attacks. At the same time, on the ground, we're seeing it that for the past few months, there's basically a stalemate. There's very little movement in terms of troops, and a lot is actually happening in the air. But we're not anywhere closer to any kind of resolution. Although last week, or earlier this week, actually, President Vladimir Putin said he's ready for talks. He's ready for peace talks, but on his terms, which basically means we don't know what that means actually, but if he controls about 20% of the land territory of Ukraine, and Ukraine saying, well, they are not going to give up an inch, there's very little in terms of the chance for any kind of resolution going forward at this point.
Yeah, they'll fight to the last bitter end, and all them people will line their pockets, excuse me, get out of Dodge before it's all said and done with. Don't be surprised if you don't see President Zelensky eventually somewhere in the United States or somewhere in Europe. Who knows? But he won't be there too much longer. I give him another year tops, and that's tops. But we shall see. Let me see this back end and see what he has to say in conclusion.
Going to come quite soon. At the same time, obviously, the situation with that Ukraine is in is very dire in terms of financing. They still need about $37 billion in terms of aid just this year. And the big question is, okay, so what happens to the money that's coming from the U.S. When is the time when Congress reaches some kind of an agreement on their aid package? So there's a lot of uncertainty around the financing, and that obviously doesn't really help in terms of the progress, in terms of sort of supporting Ukraine, especially that in terms of weapons, there's very little coming as well at this point, as the stocks of the weapons, of the supplies that West has been providing, is very basically depleted, especially in Western Europe. So we're in a very tough situation in terms of help for Ukraine in terms of financing at this point.
And there it is. He basically told the truth at the end. He said, there's no more money. We're in a tough situation. That's code for the war is over. We can keep fighting for a little while, but we need so much money, and people are just not going to keep giving you money endlessly to fight a war that you're not even winning. People don't mind funding the winner, but people, the last thing you ever want to do is fund the loser. It has to come to a point to where you just say, we're pretty much done with this. Yeah, that's pretty much over with. So it is what it is on that situation. I mean, what can you do at this point if you're Ukraine, other than all the government officials lining their pockets with all them billions of dollars the United States gave them? Get out of Dodge and start a new life somewhere else and realize that the United States didn't dupe them motherfuckers into a war that they could never win. Let's take a look at this. South Korean opposition leader Lee John, I think it's Young, stabbed in the neck. Well, if he's an opposition leader, his security was terrible for somebody to be able to stab him in the neck. Let's take a look. Wait a minute, I was trying to rewind it. I'm sorry. Let me say this first. The man was walking toward, what kind of security is going on in South Korea? South Korea is another weak military country, just like Israel, just like all these European countries, all being propped up by the United States. How long the United States can prop all these countries up for? I have no idea, but eventually it's all got to come to an end. I mean, to let your politician get stabbed in the neck where somebody could get that close, you walking one way, a man comes up and walks from a totally opposite direction and shanks you in the neck like you an American Me on a prison fucking movie is just beyond me. And that was a Call of Duty shank, too, he gave his ass. I mean, if you leave, you would have to suspect somebody around you was in on that. I mean, the security was very, very poor. And you should not be able to touch these people. You should have a few people in the back, a few people on the side. If somebody was to stick you, they would have to reach over somebody to do it. He literally walked right up to him, stuck the knife in his neck, and added a small little twist. That was preposterous. But I got one more clip going out. 4 dead and injury after Michigan house explode. Now, I've covered these house explosions right here. I covered one where it was a Tennessee Titan player, Caleb Farley. Father was killed. It was another house explosion. House blew up in Pennsylvania. It was another house. It's been like I've covered at least 10 or 15 house explosions. And I gave theories to why I think these houses are exploding because of these gas. It was like a gas bill they was trying to pass. And I asked the question. I said, is it because they tried to pass a bill on banning gas ovens? Or is there something deeper? Because one thing I know for sure, American homes just don't blow up in the way that these homes are blowing up. They're not just exploding. They're being absolutely, totally detonated where it's just nothing left but rubble. But let's take a look at this clip. Yeah, but I went over this, and this home explodes in North Carolina. Home explodes in Pennsylvania. Who blew up this house? It was another home of an Asian man. I don't know where if he was from China or Korea. I forgot where he was, but his home absolutely detonated. And so it was interesting that these homes keep blowing up like this. Take a look at this clip.
4 people are dead and 2 others are in the hospital after a house explosion in Michigan. Chopper video shows the home's foundation surrounded by a wide field of debris. The blast happened this afternoon in the community of Whitmore Lake, about 50 miles west of Detroit. One neighbor about a mile.
I want you to look at that house. That's not a regular gas explosion. Like that looked like a bunker bust, like a fucking one of them bombs was dropped on that. I seen bombs dropped in wars that didn't had total devastation like that. I mean, look at the devastation. I mean, look at the rubble in every direction, just completely obliterated the home.
Foundation surrounded by a wide field of debris. The blast happened this afternoon in the community of Whitmore Lake, about 50 miles west of Detroit. One neighbor about a mile away says he never heard anything that loud before, even in war.
You heard that? He had an ex-military man said he ain't never heard nothing that loud, even when he was at war. See what I mean? Something's rotten in Denmark. Homes are just exploding left and right. Homes are exploding left and right. It's unbelievable the amount of homes that's just blowing up. And what's going on? I don't know, but I'm not gonna watch these clips. But we just gonna go through some of these explosions of homes. Look at this, Arlington, Virginia, homes explodes. Let's take a look at this shit. Look at this shit, y'all. Somebody's hiding evidence. Something's going on. Water tank blamed for deadly house explosion.
Tonight are pinpointing a possible cause of the tremendous explosion that rocked a Pittsburgh suburb on Saturday. 5 people, including a 12-year-old boy, were killed. Fire officials say there was a problem with the hot water tank in the basement of the house that went up. 3 homes were destroyed in the blast, and the widespread fire that followed, at least a dozen other homes were damaged.
So you telling me a water tank did all that? I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to, But like I said, these homes have been exploding left and right. This is over a year ago. This is another home explode. Look at that shit, y'all. Just homes in America.
Exploded. This family in Pennsylvania recently lost their home to a gas explosion after a contractor hit a gas line. Now, luckily, the family wasn't home at that time, and the blast didn't kill any of them, but they lost everything in the explosion.
Yeah, I understand that there can be gas line explosions, but we haven't it's where it's just time after time, explosion after explosion. What's going on? I don't know. But did I call it in my video? I said, don't be surprised if you don't see more homes explode. But goddamn, even I didn't think it would be this bad. Yeah, even I listen to me. Did I predict it? Yes. Am I surprised? No. But I am surprised at the amount and just how frequently it's happening now. Unbelievable. But I appreciate you guys tuning in. This has been Sports Life and Politics TV. I'm Samuel Koppel, YouTube's #1 couch detective. I'm here for the news. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. I just took your ass. You better not hit the gas line in your house. Ride.